I, 28, female, grew up believing my mother was the villain in my story. For as long as I can remember, my dad painted this picture of her as this heartless woman who abandoned us for a richer man and then used her new husband's money to buy the legal system and keep us from him. It was always the same narrative. If only he had money like them, if only the courts weren't corrupt, if only my mom hadn't poisoned everyone against him. He'd been fighting for us in court for over a decade, but the system was rigged, or so he claimed. Growing up, we only saw Mom on court-mandated visitations. Those weekends at her house with our stepdad were tense. Dad would grill us when we got back, asking what they said about him. If they tried to turn us against him, he'd remind us that they were trying to erase him from our lives, that they thought they were better than us. My brother, 30 male, sister, 26 female, and I grew up resenting Mom and our stepdad. We believed they were keeping us from our real parent who truly loved us. The narrative Dad built was so strong that as we got older, we started refusing visitations. By the time I was 15, I barely spoke to my mother. When I graduated high school, I didn't even want her there. My brother was worse. He hadn't spoken to her in almost 12 years now. My sister maintained minimal contact, mostly out of a sense of obligation. Mom would try to reach out, send birthday cards, Christmas gifts, but Dad would either intercept them or tell us they were just attempts to buy our love. Any affection from her was twisted into some manipulative ploy. She'd call sometimes and Dad would mutter that the witch is calling again, so we'd ignore it. I remember seeing her cry once when she came to pick us up and my brother refused to go. Dad just stood there, arms crossed, saying that we're old enough to decide who we want to be with. Dad never remarried. He always said no one could replace our mother, but he'd also add that no woman would want to deal with his situation, fighting a never-ending custody battle against a wealthy opponent. He positioned himself as this martyr, sacrificing his own happiness to fight for us. We believed it all. How could we not? It was the only reality we knew. I moved out at 22 and went to college, which I paid for myself because Dad said Mom and Stepdad wouldn't help despite their money. I maintained a close relationship with Dad while keeping Mom at arm's length. I'd see her maybe once or twice a year, and those meetings were always cold and distant on my part. She tried, I'll give her that. She never stopped trying to connect with us. This all changed 3 weeks ago. I was checking my email before work and found a message from an anonymous account. The subject line was, "The truth about your parents' custody battle." I almost deleted it as spam, but curiosity got the better of me. The email contained dozens of scanned court documents from the custody case between my parents, documents I'd never seen before. What I found turned my entire world upside down. The court records showed a completely different story than what Dad had told us. According to these documents, Dad had repeatedly violated court orders. He'd failed to bring us to scheduled visitations with Mom over 40 times in the first 2 years after their divorce. There were police reports where Mom had called the cops because Dad wouldn't open the door when she came to pick us up. But what really shook me were the psychological evaluations. As part of the custody proceedings, both parents had undergone evaluations. Mom's showed her to be stable and concerned primarily with our well-being. Dad's, however, revealed patterns of manipulation, parental alienation, and emotional abuse. The psychologist had specifically noted his tendency to use us as emotional weapons against our mother and his systematic campaign to destroy the children's relationship with their mother. The courts hadn't ruled against Dad because Mom had money. They ruled against him because he was actively trying to alienate us from her. The judge's final ruling was damning. It stated that Dad had engaged in a persistent pattern of parental alienation and that his behavior was psychologically damaging to the children. One document particularly gutted me. It was a letter Mom's lawyer had submitted to the court pleading for stricter enforcement of visitation. In it, Mom described calling our house and hearing Dad tell us not to pick up because it's just your mother. She described showing up for pickups and watching through the windows as Dad told us to go hide. She described sending birthday gifts that we later told her we never received. The final blow was a psychiatric report from when I was 14. Apparently, I'd been interviewed by a court-appointed psychiatrist without even realizing what it was for. In my interview, I'd repeated Dad's exact phrases about Mom, that she abandoned us for a rich man, that she only wanted us when it was convenient, that she bought the judge. The psychiatrist noted that these were not typical expressions for a 14-year-old and concluded I was repeating adult narratives I'd been fed. I called in sick to work and spent the day going through every document. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my mom without telling Dad first. When she answered, I could hear the surprise in her voice. I asked her if we could meet for coffee. She agreed immediately. That coffee meeting lasted 5 hours. I showed her the email and asked if the documents were real. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. It was relief mixed with old pain. She confirmed they were real, but said she had no idea who might have sent them to me. She'd never wanted to tell us these things herself because she didn't want to put us in the middle or make us feel like we had to choose sides, even though Dad had done exactly that our entire lives. She told me things I'd never known, how she'd drive to our school events and watch from a distance because Dad had threatened to make a scene if she approached us, how she'd spend child support payments well above what the court required, hoping the extra money would give us better opportunities, how she'd kept a journal for each of us, writing entries on our birthdays and other important days, saving them for when we might want them someday. When I asked about the money, about her buying the judge, as Dad had always claimed, she pulled out her phone and showed me her bank records. She and my dad are comfortable, sure, but nowhere near as wealthy as Dad had made them out to be. My stepdad works in insurance, and Mom is a school administrator. They have a nice house in a good neighborhood, but they're not rolling in money like Dad had us believe. After that meeting, I went home and pulled out all the boxes of my childhood stuff. Among them was a shoebox where I'd kept the few cards and letters from Mom that I'd managed to get before Dad had intercepted them. Before Dad could intercept them. Reading them now as an adult who knew the truth was heartbreaking. They weren't the manipulative messages Dad had characterized them as. They were a mother desperately trying to maintain a connection with children who were being turned against her. I've spent the last 3 weeks in a daze re-examining every memory, every story, every interaction through this new lens. I realized that even the narrative about why they divorced was probably a lie. Dad always said Mom left him for a richer man, but the court documents showed she'd filed for divorce, citing emotional abuse. The timeline also didn't match Dad's story. She didn't start dating my stepdad until almost a year after the divorce was finalized. I've had several more meetings with Mom since then. I've learned that she set up college funds for all 3 of us, which Dad never told us about, and apparently withdrew money from, which led to another court battle. Yesterday, I got another anonymous email. This one contained police reports from last year that showed Dad is currently under investigation for embezzlement at his company. Apparently, this investigation has been going on for months, but he never mentioned it to any of us. According to the reports, there's substantial evidence against him, and charges are likely to be filed soon. Now I'm at a crossroads. The prosecutor handling Dad's case has reached out to me through Mom. They contacted her looking for potential character witnesses. They want to know if I'd be willing to testify about his history of manipulation and deception. Part of me feels like I'd be betraying Dad, despite everything I've learned. He's still my father, and there were good times too. But another part of me is so angry about the years of lies about the relationship with my mother that he stole from me. My brother is still firmly in Dad's camp, and when I tried to talk to him about what I discovered, he accused Mom of fabricating the documents and me of betraying the family. My sister is more receptive, but still reluctant to completely overturn her view of our parents. I feel lost. These revelations have shattered the foundation of my identity and my understanding of my own childhood. I don't know if testifying against Dad is the right thing to do, or if I should just try to move forward and build a relationship with my mom without getting involved in Dad's legal troubles. I'm also worried about my siblings, especially my brother, who seems unable or unwilling to even consider that we've been manipulated. So, Reddit, what would you do in my situation? Should I testify? Should I show my siblings the evidence? Is it even possible to rebuild a relationship with my mom after all these years of treating her like an enemy? And how do I come to terms with the fact that the parent I thought was fighting for me was actually the one keeping me from having a relationship with both parents? Update 1. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support and advice on my original post. I've been reading every comment, though I haven't had the emotional energy to respond to many. A lot has happened in the last few days. After posting here, I decided to reach out to my sister again and show her all the documents I'd received. Unlike my brother, she was willing to at least look at them. We spent an entire evening going through everything together. By the end of it, she was crying. She remembered things I didn't. Times when Dad had explicitly told her not to enjoy her visits with Mom, or when he'd punish her for saying positive things about our stepdad. She remembered once getting a bike for her birthday from Mom and stepdad, and Dad making her leave it outside until it was stolen because he wouldn't have their gifts in his house. My sister and I decided to meet with Mom. It was the first time my sister had voluntarily sought out time with her in almost a decade. The meeting was emotional, to say the least. My sister apologized for how she'd treated Mom over the years, and Mom just kept saying it wasn't our fault, that we were children who trusted our father as we should have been able to do. As for my brother, he's still not speaking to me. He sent a text calling me a traitor and saying Dad told him I was working with Mom to try to get money from him. I tried calling to explain, but he won't pick up. I even forwarded him the documents, but I don't know if he's looked at them. Regarding the legal situation with Dad, I met with the prosecutor handling his embezzlement case. They explained that they weren't looking for me to testify about his character in general, but rather about specific financial matters. Apparently, Dad had told his employers that he needed to withdraw large sums of money to pay for my medical treatments. I don't have any medical conditions that would require expensive treatment, and I certainly never received any money from him for medical purposes. The prosecutor believes he used my name to embezzle over $200,000 over the past 3 years. After learning this, I decided I would testify if needed. This isn't about the custody battle anymore. It's about him potentially committing fraud using my name. I can't look the other way on that. I also did something I've been avoiding. I confronted Dad. I went to his house yesterday, determined to hear his side of the story. I didn't show him the documents immediately. I just asked him to tell me about the custody battle, about why he and Mom really divorced. I wanted to give him a chance to come clean. He stuck to the same story he's always told. Mom abandoned us for money, used her resources to turn the courts against him, etc. When I mentioned the embezzlement investigation, he became defensive and said his company was trying to frame him because he knew too much about their own illegal activities. When I finally showed him some of the court documents, he became enraged. He accused me of spying on him, of betraying him, just like your mother did. He said the documents were fake, that Mom had probably created them to turn me against him. The conversation ended with him telling me to leave and not come back until I was ready to be loyal to my real family. I left feeling simultaneously heartbroken and certain that I was making the right decision. Today, I received yet another anonymous email. This one contained bank statements showing transfers from accounts in my name and my siblings' names to Dad's personal account. The thing is, I never opened these accounts. It appears Dad may have been opening accounts in our names and using them for his own purposes for years. I forwarded everything to the prosecutor and contacted my bank to make sure there aren't other accounts in my name I don't know about. I've also started seeing a therapist to help process all of this. She specializes in parental alienation and family trauma. After just one session, she helped me understand that what Dad did is a recognized form of child abuse, and that my confused feelings, still loving him despite everything, are normal. Mom has suggested family therapy for those of us willing to participate, and my sister and I are considering it. We're taking things slow in rebuilding our relationship with her. It's awkward and painful at times, but also healing. Yesterday, she showed me the journal she kept for us over the years. Reading her entries from when I was a teenager, when I was at my cruelest to her, was difficult. She wrote about still being proud of my accomplishments even when I wouldn't let her be part of them. So that's where things stand now. I'm moving forward with assisting in the investigation against Dad, if needed, working on healing my relationship with Mom and my sister, and hoping that eventually my brother will be open to at least considering the evidence. It's not an easy road, and I still have moments where I question everything, but I'm trying to follow the truth wherever it leads. Update 2. The situation has escalated dramatically in the last few days. 3 days ago, my brother finally agreed to meet with me after my sister intervened. I brought copies of all the documents I'd received, prepared to go through them patiently with him. When I arrived at the coffee shop where we planned to meet, Dad was with him. It was an ambush. Dad started accusing me of fabricating evidence against him, of conspiring with Mom to finish what she started by trying to take his remaining children away from him. My brother sat there nodding in agreement. I tried to stay calm and suggested we all sit down and look at the documents together, but Dad refused. He said he didn't need to look at forgeries. The confrontation got heated, with Dad raising his voice enough that people at nearby tables were staring. I decided it wasn't productive and got up to leave. As I was walking out, Dad called after me that I'd regret choosing her over family. My brother just watched silently as I left. Later that night, something even more disturbing happened. I got home from work to find my apartment had been broken into. My place was ransacked, with drawers emptied onto the floor and furniture overturned. The only things missing were my laptop and the folder where I kept printed copies of all the court documents and financial records. Nothing else of value was taken. Not my TV, not my jewelry, not even the cash I had in my dresser drawer. I called the police immediately, and while the officers were taking my statement, I received a text from an unknown number that just said, "Back off now or worse will happen." I showed this to the police, who took it seriously, especially when I explained the situation with my father. They're investigating, but warned me that it might be difficult to prove who was behind the break-in. Feeling unsafe, I packed a bag and went to stay with Mom and my stepdad. It was strange walking into their house as a place of refuge when, for so long, I'd seen it as an enemy territory. They set up their guest room for me without hesitation and installed a security system with cameras the very next day. My stepdad, who I'd vilified in my mind for years, has been incredibly supportive through all of this. The prosecutor working on Dad's case was alarmed when I told them about the break-in. They've now assigned a victim advocate to work with me and have suggested I consider a restraining order against Dad. They also informed me that they'd found even more evidence of financial fraud. Apparently, Dad hadn't just been using my name, but had also opened credit cards in my siblings' names without their knowledge. I decided to check my credit report, something I hadn't done in years. What I found was shocking. There were 3 credit cards in my name that I never applied for, all maxed out with over $50,000 in debt combined. There was also a personal loan for $30,000 and a second mortgage on a property I didn't own. My credit score, which should have been excellent based on the accounts I actually manage, was in ruins. I spent an entire day filing fraud reports and contacting credit agencies. The victim advocate helped me through the process and put me in touch with a financial crime specialist who's helping me untangle this mess. It's going to be a long process to clear my credit, but at least I've started. In the midst of all this chaos, something unexpected happened. My sister received an email from the same anonymous account that had been sending me information. Her email contained different documents, records showing that Dad had also embezzled money from his previous company 10 years ago. But the case had been settled out of court with a gag order. There were also records of gambling debts at casinos in 3 different states. My sister shared these with me immediately and decided to take an even bigger step. She moved out of Dad's house, where she'd been living to save money while finishing graduate school. She's temporarily staying with a friend, but has already started looking for a permanent place. We decided to confront our brother one more time, but without Dad present. We invited him to meet us at a public library, thinking he might feel safer in a neutral public space. To our surprise, he showed up. We didn't immediately bring up Dad. Instead, my sister showed him her credit report, which, like mine, showed accounts she never opened. We gently suggested he check his own. He was reluctant, but used one of the library computers to do so. When he saw the results, multiple loans and credit cards in his name that he knew nothing about, something changed in his expression. He didn't say much, but he took copies of some of the documents we'd brought and said he needed time to think. Yesterday, the anonymous emailer revealed themselves to me. It turns out to be Dad's administrative assistant from work. A woman named Megan, who has worked for him for the past 5 years. She reached out directly, saying she couldn't stay anonymous anymore given how serious the situation had become. She explained that she discovered Dad's fraudulent activities while preparing reports for the company's annual audit. When she confronted him about it, he threatened her job and implied he would make trouble for her family if she reported him. Megan had kept quiet at first, but continued to collect evidence. When she learned he was using his children's identities for fraud, she felt she had to do something. She found our contact information in Dad's files and decided to send the court documents first, thinking we should know the truth about our parents before learning about the financial crimes. She's now working with the prosecutor's office as well. With all this new information, I decided to formally press charges for identity theft against Dad. My sister is doing the same. We're hoping our brother will join us, but we're giving him space to process everything at his own pace. Mom has been a rock through all of this, despite the fact that these revelations must be bringing up painful memories for her too. She's respected our need to work through our feelings about Dad without demonizing him to us, even now. Yesterday, she told me something that stuck with me. Your father wasn't always this way. He was a good man once, but something broke in him. That doesn't excuse what he did to you kids or to me, but I hope someday you can separate the father you needed from the man he became. The prosecutor believes they'll be filing additional charges against Dad for witness intimidation based on the break-in and threatening text. They've advised all of us to be careful and document any contact from him. So that's where things stand now. I'm living with Mom and Stepdad, working to repair my credit, preparing to testify in multiple cases against Dad, and trying to process my shifting understanding of my entire childhood. It's exhausting and painful, but also clarifying in a strange way. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm seeing clearly. Update 3. Things have taken an even more dramatic turn. 2 days ago, I received a call from the police. Dad had been arrested. Not for the embezzlement or identity theft, but for attempting to hire someone to scare me into dropping my cooperation with the authorities. Unfortunately for him, the person he approached reported him immediately. According to the police, Dad had approached a former employee of his company who had a criminal record. He offered this person $5,000 to send a message to me. The exact wording was apparently vague, but the implication was clear enough that the authorities are treating it as a solicitation of assault. The former employee, unwilling to get involved in something like this, recorded the conversation and took it straight to the police. My brother finally called me after hearing about the arrest. He was in shock, struggling to reconcile the father he thought he knew with the man who would do something like this. He asked if he could come and stay with me for a few days, and I told him I was staying with Mom and Dad. There was a long pause, and then he asked if the invitation would extend to him as well. I checked with Mom, who didn't hesitate to say yes. It was surreal watching my brother walk into Mom's house for the first time in over a decade. He was so uncomfortable at first, barely making eye contact with Mom or my stepdad. But they gave him space, not pushing for emotional reunions or apologies. Mom just showed him to the second guest room, told him meal times, and said he was welcome to stay as long as he needed. That night, the three of us siblings stayed up late, talking in my brother's room. He admitted that he'd been having doubts about Dad's version of events for years, but had pushed them aside out of loyalty. He told us about things Dad had said to him when we weren't around, how my brother was the only loyal one, how he was better than his sisters who were too easily influenced by their mother. The manipulation was even deeper than I'd realized. My brother decided to check his credit report too, and as we expected, found numerous fraudulent accounts. The three of us spent the next day working with the financial crime specialist, filing reports and adding our names to the growing case against Dad. The prosecutor has informed us that with the new charges of solicitation of assault, Dad is being held without bail as a potential danger to witnesses. The embezzlement and identity theft cases are proceeding, with additional evidence coming from the company's internal investigation. They've discovered that the fraud goes back at least 5 years and involves over $800,000, far more than initially thought. Yesterday, we had our first family therapy session. It was just me, my siblings, mom, and the therapist. My stepdad gave us space for this initial meeting. It was emotionally exhausting, but also cathartic. My brother apologized to Mom for his years of coldness, and she, as always, assured him it wasn't his fault. The therapist helped us understand that we'd all been victims of parental alienation, and that the guilt many of us feel for believing Dad, for treating Mom poorly, for not seeing the truth sooner, is common in cases like ours. After the session, my stepdad joined us for dinner. Watching him interact with Mom, I saw something I'd been blind to all these years. They genuinely love and respect each other. He's patient and kind, nothing like the villainous character Dad had painted him to be. He showed my brother his collection of vintage vinyl records, and they discovered a shared interest in classic rock. It was a small moment, but seeing them connect over something so normal felt like a glimpse into what our family relationships could have been all these years. Mom pulled out old photo albums after dinner, pictures of us as babies, as toddlers, from before the divorce when things were still good. There were pictures I'd never seen of family, vacations, birthdays, normal, happy family moments. For so long, Dad had controlled our family narrative, even our memories. Seeing these photos was like recovering pieces of a history I didn't know I'd lost. In a bizarre twist, we also learned that Dad had apparently been maintaining a separate family in another state. Megan, his assistant, revealed that he regularly took business trips to Ohio, where he had a long-term girlfriend and a 7-year-old son. None of us had any idea. This woman apparently knew Dad was divorced, but believed we maintained a close relationship with him, and that we chose to stay in our hometown while he split his time between locations for work. She's been contacted by investigators and is understandably devastated. This morning, Dad's lawyer reached out to each of us. He's trying to negotiate a plea deal and wants us to write letters to the court asking for leniency. My brother and sister both refused immediately. I'm still considering it, not because I want to help Dad avoid consequences, but because part of me wants the opportunity to express in writing exactly how his actions have affected me. The prosecutor has advised that such a letter could be submitted as a victim impact statement instead, which would allow me to have my say without supporting his plea for reduced charges. Through all of this, the support from Mom and my stepdad has been unwavering. They've opened their home to all 3 of their adult children without hesitation. They've respected our complicated feelings about Dad, never jumping in with, "I told you so," or using this as vindication for themselves. They've paid for the family therapy and offered to help with the legal costs of fixing our credit. My stepdad even offered to help my brother find a job at his company if he needed one. I'm starting to understand that this is what real parental love looks like. Supporting your children even when it's hard, even when they've rejected you, even when they've believed terrible things about you. It's the opposite of what Dad did, using our love as a weapon and our loyalty as a shield for his own actions. The road ahead is still long. We're all in individual therapy now, in addition to the family sessions. We're working with financial and legal experts to untangle the mess Dad made of our credit and finances. The court cases will likely take months, if not years, to fully resolve. But for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm part of a real family, one built on truth and genuine care rather than manipulation and lies. Mom says we can't get back the years we lost, but we can make the most of the time we have now. And that's what I'm trying to focus on. So, Reddit, thank you for your support through this painful journey. To those who encouraged me to trust my instincts and pursue the truth, you helped give me the courage to face this. To those who shared similar stories of parental alienation, you helped me feel less alone. This isn't the happy ending I would have written. I never wanted to discover my father was capable of such deception and cruelty. But it's a truthful ending, and after a lifetime of lies, the truth feels like the most important thing right now. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.